Good morning, everybody. Everybody got very quiet. This is the session for the Denver Peak Academy and the culture change around lean process improvement within government. Is everybody in the right room? I feel like I'm a flight attendant telling you we are about to fly to Anchorage. Are you on the right flight? Couple of things. There's a sign-in sheet, and there's a reason for the sign-in sheet that I'll share towards the end, actually kind of like at the very end, and there's a reason why it's pen and paper. So going totally hands-on, no electronic media. One other thing that Dave and I were thinking about, we're going to introduce ourselves here in a moment, was in terms of logistics, if we could, close the laptops, put the phones on silence, and interact with each other, like the human element of the interaction. So that's an ask, that's a request, but we get that you're very important people, so if you must take a phone call, please go outside. If you must tweet that you're in this class, I'm honored. Thank you. Please do so. It would be great, but maybe after the session about how awesome it was. So a little bit about us. We're from Denver. Dave, you want to start? I got you on the left side.
Oh yeah, I'm on the left side, so left goes first. Hi, Dave Ettinger from the city of Denver. Thanks for coming, and we've done a lot of these sessions in Denver of various types, and we've actually taken it on the road before and gone to other cities. I think we've at this point trained something like 30 different cities in some form of lean through the Peak Academy, and we've trained entire cohorts of groups of 16 or 20 nonprofit partners of Denver, so it's always interesting to try new crowds and see how things shake out. So I'm Dave Ettinger. Scottie has written up there, civic entrepreneur. I actually used to be in the warehouse and logistics business before this, so come from a very different and non-traditional sort of background for government. And I am the Chief Performance Officer of Denver, which means I'm responsible for creating the entire performance framework, which we'll touch on briefly in a moment. And part of that is this Peak Academy, this idea of supporting and embedding innovation and trying to empower the 11,000 to 12,000 or so employees that we have. Basically, what we're trying to do is create the small business culture that I had running 100-person warehouse logistics operations where everybody was involved in innovation, trying to take that kind of a culture and bringing it to a large organization with many different business lines and a lot of silos. My fun fact, and Scottie's got a better one, I'm sure, is that a year ago, I don't know if any of you know Mark Head from Philadelphia. So a year ago, I met Mark and talked to him briefly here. And at the time, I was thinking, I grew up with a guy named Mark Head, but nah, it's not the same guy. So sure enough, I'm talking to Dennis from Governing Magazine yesterday, and he's saying, yeah, we were talking about Syracuse, New York, and he said, yeah, Mark's from Syracuse, New York. And then I was like, yep, I bet you that's the same guy. So last night I pulled it up. And sure enough, he was a year behind me at Corcoran High School in Syracuse, New York. I was in class, his sister Sarah was in my class, and I'm like, a small world, And so, and the funny part is I'm meeting up with some high school friends tonight. I'm going to see if I can get Mark to come along. It's kind of cool. Scottie?
Got it. So my background, I'm an environmental engineer, and the reason that's somewhat interesting is because a lot of the engineering is very systems thinking. And the development community really latches on to things like the concepts within lean. So my background, environmental engineer, I know when the offer was made for me to join the city as a colleague that folks in the mayor's office, they reached out their hand and they said, we are giving you a job here at the city of Denver to disrupt, to change things, and to start bringing in and working on this concept of a culture of innovation. And just fostering it and coaching it and embedding it and supporting it. So that's, I'm a change agent. And it's like I have this myriad background of software development work, environmental engineering, doing a lot of Lean Six Sigma work, management consulting. And you know what? I am just there to start coaching people and creating a safe environment for them to fail. With the intent that don't worry about being in the Denver Post in the Denver area. It is about you constantly changing what you do. Fun fact, having grown up in Florida and the Orlando area, I worked at Walt Disney World. I've been fired from Walt Disney World. Right on, okay. So if you want to hear that story, that would give us something to talk about over lunch or something. It's a pretty funny story. Okay. Dave? You can take
Yeah,
it.
so other fun fact about Scottie that I learned this trip is that he sleeps with a stuffed owl that his daughter Lily gave him to travel with, which I thought that was so cute. I had to share that. So I know you know how cities work. I'm not showing you a pie chart of how the city of Denver spends its money because you don't know what that probably looks like in your city. The point is really a lot of different business lines, right? Very hard to get folks involved when you have so many different things that you're doing. How do you go about doing that? How do you go about getting folks involved in that? Our total budget, $2.2 million. The thing I'll ask you to think about is how much of that do you think we spend on peak performance per year? And there's going to be a quiz later. And what do you think our return is on that out of that $2 billion budget? It's kind of surprising number, I think, when we get to that at the end. In terms of FTE, about 11,000 folks. You know, we're a city and county. We've got those people in different places. But again, the point is, how do you get that small business culture embedded in 11,000 people? We chose a methodology, Lean, which we'll be doing some exercises with you here today, that we think really speaks to that. One of the common mistakes I think folks make when they're trying to do these efforts is they think they have to do a whole bunch of stuff. You hear, I was talking to Stuart about Lean Six Sigma, and then you start talking about business process, and that just scares off a lot of folks and takes them out of the hands of innovation. What we were trying to do, and when Scottie and I started this effort, was we were trying to flip the table on everybody thinks innovation means technology. And when everybody thinks innovation means technology, what ends up happening is they think only the 240 people in technology services are responsible for innovation, and they can just sit back and have ideas, right? How do you get folks to say, no, it's my responsibility? Well, what you do, in our case, is you say process is innovation. Technology will come later. And everybody has some kind of process in their life. So this is the framework. We never talk about this with our employees, by the way. I'm only doing that because I know most of the folks in this room are wonky and can kind of get it. But the idea is, this is our performance framework. The stuff at the top is basically our goals. They're not surprising. Kids, job safety net, sustainability, customer experience. I bet you that overlaps with a lot of organizations in here. The stuff on the left under strategic planning, that's our form of city stat. Got to have some way to measure what you're doing. You have to have some way to decide what the priorities are. Strategic planning, I call it strategic planning or city stat light in Denver. We don't spend a ton of time on that. We have one annual review. You're expected to create your own strategic plan. You can use whatever model you want. A lot of folks use a logic model. It doesn't matter to us. Create something that you can use to communicate with your employees why you do what you do and how you're going to measure it. Scottie will probably ask you a quiz question later about how do you innovate. This is the fun part as you get into the sort of middle and right section, right? Innovate and celebrate. You can innovate around people, you can innovate around process, you can innovate around technology. We've purposefully chosen to de-emphasize the technology route and focus on the people and the process. We do that in a variety of ways. And the thing we'll be talking about here is this peak academy model where we've now trained, I think it's close to 4,000 of our employees in some form. You have to get to that critical mass. In the beginning, you would train people and they would cry at the end of the week when they were finished with training because they knew they were going to just be slammed by their coworkers when they went back and tried to do some of the stuff we had just taught them to do. Once you get to this sort of, now we're at 25% of the workforce trained in this stuff, it's not uncommon for me to walk into a meeting. I was in a defensive driving class that you have to take every 3 years last week, and the person teaching it said, we need to run a rapid improvement event in this particular process. You hear the language of innovation if you stick to one form of it, and it's really powerful, and it's not uncommon to hear people talking about value streams, just do it's, all these other terms that we've essentially made up over the last 2 years, and now that's just part of the culture. But the really important thing is to celebrate, and that's what we train our managers to do, is you gotta give people the permission, as Scottie was saying, to fail. You have to get them to, it's like a ropes course, right? You want them to take that chance. We celebrate $9 innovations. Somebody 5S's their desk and saves the city $9 in paper clips. That's just as good to us as a $1.5 million system-wide innovation that they might come up with. We don't care if it's small. We don't care if it's big. We just want them to try something. Because what we found is when we get them to try something, then they're really likely to do it again and again and again. I think there was a stat that was thrown out yesterday about 94% of technology companies or projects fail or something along those lines. We're batting about 300, right? So for every 10 people we train, about 3 of them go on and do great things. Those 3 are enough to pay for the whole thing. But there's a huge cost of hesitation. There's a huge cost to not having everybody on board, and we'll talk about ways we do that, but the number one way we get people to do it is we celebrate it. So when we first started this program, we focused on one agency, Human Services, and the mayor knew what he was supposed to do, not supposed to do what we asked him to do in that situation, which was when they start having successes, we need you to jump up and down at the cabinet meetings, at the all-appointee meetings. You have to keep pointing to that agency and saying, look at the wonderful things they're doing. And sure enough, 80% of the rest of the organization came along because it's just too uncomfortable to be in the position of watching someone else get all the good attention. So celebration is a really key point of that. Why Peak Academy? I talked about the idea of creating 11,000 innovators. How do you do that? You move away from technology. Now we're bringing technology back. It was really hard for me as a fellowship city to tell our staff that we were going to be a fellowship city in 2014 for CFA. Right? They said, well, Dave, you know, that's hypocritical. You've told us it's not about technology. You've told us we don't have to bring in consultants. What's this all about? We had to say, well, CFA is a different kind of a partnership, and they sort of got it, and I think they really get it now. But we went consultant light. We purposefully chose. We are not going to bring consultants in to teach ourselves Lean. Lean is open source methodology. We're going to teach it to ourselves, and then we're going to teach it to each other, and now we're teaching it to our partners, and we're teaching it to other cities. And the point is, if you bring consultants in every time you have a challenge, and I'm sorry to the consultants in the room, I used to be a consultant. If you bring a consultant in every time you have a challenge or a big problem, you're teaching your employees they're not good enough to innovate. You don't want to teach them that. And we talked about process innovation and the open source part of this. Lean is free. There's a reason we didn't choose Six Sigma. There's a reason we didn't choose some of these other things. You can take all the material and you can adapt it to your purposes, and you don't have to pay anybody a dime. And we, in the spirit of that, have taken all of our curriculum and and it's on our website, and you're free to take it, and we hope you do, and we hope you make it better and then give it back. We have some folks who've come from San Francisco and are now doing some of this in San Francisco's government, and they're creating stuff we never would have thought of in terms of curriculum, and they're giving it back to Denver and others. Ashley Hand is here from Kansas City. She's gone through the Black Belt training. She's launching this in Kansas City right now. And we've had folks from New York City Environmental Health come. We've had people from all over the country. In fact, Scottie and I are going up to train at the Canadian Lean Government Summit to do this. And the point is, we can all push the needle and make all this material better if we keep developing it in an open source kind of a way. And now on to the fun stuff with Scottie Martin.
There were people that were staring at me as I was trying to put the tennis balls out on the table. And I kept saying that there's a reason why I'm putting these tennis balls on the table. And you are not going to like what's going to happen to you over the next 45 minutes. Because you're going to have to interact. You're going to have to meet each other. You're going to have to talk. You're going to have to kind of get into what's happening. So I'm going to apologize and tell you I will take you out for a beer, wine, and just apologize later. But we're going to kind of do this. There are some folks on the back wall you got to join in too. There's plenty of seats up here at the different tables. So if you could, come on up. That's right. Thank you. So how do we teach process improvement? And we teach process improvement with simple exercises. We're about to do one. Let me tell you that what you're about to do, some people here, have you done the tennis ball exercise before? Has anybody, please don't give this away if you have done this before. All right, anybody else? I see one hand. Anybody else? Okay. What's that? A definite maybe? Maybe? Got it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the tennis ball exercise. So here's the rules of the game. One, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to stand up. But just for a moment, rules of the game is you're going to work as a team at your table. And the intent is that you're going to take all 3 balls, and you're going to have everybody touch the ball. Think about passing a form around. like think about some analogies here. And you're going to pass the ball around and put them back into the can at the end. And you have to do that in less than 5 seconds. So the rules are no one can touch the ball more than once. Follow the same order in which you have done this for every ball. There can be no drops. That's considered a defect. You have to start the entire thing over. So if you drop the ball, even if you're on the third ball and the last person about to put it in the can drops it on the ground, you got to pull the other 2 balls out of the can, and you got to start over again. The ball must be touched or passed through everyone's hand on your team. And you have to do it in 5 seconds or less. Every time we do this one, people are like, WTF? Like, what is going on here? Like, what are you doing? So let's, quick debrief. What did we learn together as a team? Anybody? Let me ask a question right here, even before you started. What was your greatest innovation? Awesome. Anybody else have an innovation that was different than letting all the balls pass through your hand as a team directly into the tennis ball can?
We did one that ended up being a slide, essentially. Same idea, but
That's totally cool. And they were dealing with apples because facilitator didn't bring enough tennis balls. That was Dave's fault. He's the C-level guy. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, nice job.
I need a job. So any other innovation? Greatest innovation? Something you want to like, we did an awesome job. Like, how did it go? Like, what was your greatest innovation? Anybody else? That's all right. Was there any waste in your process? Is there anything that like didn't do anything towards the objective? What was that?
Right over here. Yeah, somebody said something over here. Was there waste?
Okay. Got it. Were there anything that you noticed in the process that added no value, inherent value? Yeah, in the back?
Yeah, listening to you say the first time to pass it across the table to each other and remember where we did it was a terrible way to start. Sorry.
Sorry. I think I owe you a beer, don't I? All right. Okay. Did you work together as a team to solve the problem? Oh, go ahead, in the middle.
So, yeah, I actually think that was a great way to start, only because it caused us to reevaluate what was the actual requirement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the requirement wasn't for everybody to, move the ball around. It was, for everybody to touch the ball and put them away. So, I think questioning the process of the end result, when given confusing requirements from the get-go, I think that was a lesson learned.
Totally. One of the other things, I mean, there's this kind of bullet down here. Did you question the rules of the game? Think about what we're indoctrinating inside of the city culture in Denver. Who cares if you showed up at your first day of work 15 years ago and someone taught you how the process works by dancing around a fire with no documentation? This is how we do it, and it's always been this way, and it's part of the Colorado revised statutes, and thou shalt and forevermore. We're saying, why aren't we questioning? I mean, we were having a conversation last night about a particular form in the Department of Treasury in Denver, and I was asking the question, like, have somebody sue us, like take some of that information off the form. It probably was from 1922. Denver got sued, and we paid somebody $1,000 in 1922, which was a lot of money then, and I'm making up a story about why we ended up with some gunk on the form. This is not a technology change. This is just like, get rid of it. Like, I mean, obviously we want to be thoughtful, but we don't want to be in a world where we're not questioning the rules of the game. I don't want to gloss over, did you work together as a team? I see some people nodding. I see some people like, man, I picked the wrong session to be in this morning. And I see some people not making eye contact with me, right? I'm totally going to call on you, right? But did you work together as a team? Yeah, totally. You guys were laughing, having fun, right? I saw smiles. Oh my gosh. You're working together as a team to evaluate what you do. You saw waste in a process, and you got together. There was camaraderie. There was the team working together. Did you seek perfection? Did you want to do it right? Were you motivated by the 5 seconds? I see some people nodding your head. Yep, okay, that's great. Oh, by the way, one of the things that we're working on within Peak Academy is to start teaching our leaders to put 5 seconds out there like, let's go. Can we do it in 5 seconds? Then we talked about questioning the rules of the game, had fun. Okay, so lean process improvement as taught to us, and Dave even asked me, oh, why were you putting as taught to us? And it's because there are folks in the Lean Six Sigma world that I come from that are, well, did you know that there's actually 6 principles of lean? And they're like, I don't care. Like, it's open source. We totally forked the code. We made some stuff up, but there's some things that we adhere to be honorable to lean and its originations within the Japanese culture. We identify the value that our customers want, not the people that do the work. Who's your customer? What do they want? And once you identify that value, map the steps of your process together as a team and determine how you deliver value to your customers. Can you deliver that value to your customers on demand when they want it? Don't batch a bunch of stuff and have it ready for them. Have it in a just-in-time type of delivery system. And can you deliver that value without waste? And that's called flow within the lean methodology. And do you seek perfection as a team to standardize what you do, write it down, and then solve to continually improve it? And the intent behind that is you work together as a team to identify, if this is the thing that my customer values, how can we deliver this with no additional steps without the waiting? I was thinking about Atlanta and how powerful that technology innovation was. And one of the questions that I was asking about Atlanta is, did they build the building so that people had to know that type of flow? And in lean, there's a design for lean. There's a way that you design physical layouts. There's things called flow cells. These are things that we can talk about in these sample innovations that Dave's going to go through. And that would be a perfect time, hint, hint, wink, wink, to ask lots of questions. Like, how did you do it? Like, how does that work? So, yeah.
Will you be sharing your slides?
Certainly. Yeah.
It just gives us an idea how much notes.
Totally. And one of the things that David mentioned, all of this stuff, I kind of threw it into the CFA templates. All this stuff is online at denvergov.org/Peak Academy, all one word. All of our training decks, everything. Yep, all the training materials, everything. It is open source to you, free, take it. And the hope is that, one, you use it, please, and then when you fork the code, teach us back what we're doing wrong, or like help us continuously improve our continuous improvement model. So all the stuff is online.
And what's it called? Because there's like black belt, green belt, California presentation.
Under black belt, you should see the training decks. Yeah. Green belt, by the way, we're going through a green belt training, everything that we're doing here. And this particular slide deck, be happy and honored to share that with you. So lean boils down to 2 things. It has a set of tools to identify waste and then tools to eliminate waste. And here's just a sampling of some of the tools that we teach. This is not all of them. And once again, if there's a lean Bible beater here in the room, we teach more than this. This is just a sampling of the types of tools. Yes?
Why are we so lean on the brand name lean? I mean, is it we're building on Toyota Way and Kaizen? Is that the whole issue? Or are we doing something brand new?
It's a great question. One of the things that's interesting is when we found that we were introducing this as something new, knowing that it came from somewhere and that it had been tried and successful somewhere else was important to some people because folks that are in the government, and I get kind of frumpy when folks in the coding community say this, but because it's me, I get a chance to say it. We don't like the new things sometimes. And knowing that it's been done before and that it's a safe thing is kind of important. So what we have done is we leverage lean, but I use this in a playful way, but I'm being very serious with this audience. We kind of Mercanize a bunch of the terms, right? So instead of calling it a Kaizen, we just call it a rapid improvement event. So we have kind of just put some everyday language on top of some of the Japanese terms. So lean is 2 things, tools to identify and tools to eliminate. And then what people get really you watch body language in the room when we start teaching within Denver, and our colleagues are like, there's no waste in my process. What are you talking about? Yeah, there's waste in every process. And we tell the story about, in the Japanese culture, the rock gardens. They continuously move the white and the black rocks within the garden, and they make something that is absolutely gorgeous, and they'll rip it all up and they'll redo it. Like they're always seeking perfection. There's always ways to do things better. And I heard a quote, someone attributed it to Benjamin Franklin. I don't care where it comes from, but the quote is this. It is, if you think you're done improving, you're wrong. So the intent behind this is to let people know you're at a certain state in your journey. Now it's time to continuously improve that journey. You can always change what you do and redefine who your customer is, interact with them, find out what they value, and start seeking perfection and striving towards that flow and that pool. But waste, you watch people, when you use that word, they're like, nah, there's no waste in my process. There is. And waste is disrespectful for these three reasons. One, it's disrespectful to humanity. It's disrespectful to the individuals like us as colleagues. You're asking me to do work that's adding no value. I mean, I'm probably a pretty resentful person when I go home at night if I'm doing a project or a piece of work operationally that isn't really adding value. And then it's disrespectful to our citizens, like our customers, because it's asking them to endure something. And oh, by the way, they're paying for this. It's like it's killing us when we're having these interactions with our citizens, our customers, when we have waste in our process. And they know it and we know it, but that's my job, man. Like, no, that's not good enough anymore. And it's disrespectful to the folks in the process, and it's disrespectful to our customers. All right. So we're right on track. We've got an exercise for you. We're going to do process mapping. Who here has done process mapping? Okay. What tool do you typically use when you map a process? Anyone, like in your organization? Post-its. Whiteboards. Love it. That's one of we make our process mapping very tactile, and it's a physical manifestation of a group coming together to sit down and map a process out together. And if it's not in the hands of somebody that's the Visio person or the PowerPoint or the Excel person or the Word person sitting at computer, it's the team coming together to map the process. And we actually tell people, have fun with it. You're not going to break anything. No one's going to pass away. But really be critical of what you're putting up on the wall. Another question. Who here, let's go with the back table, very back. Who here has a process that you know you would like to improve? Do you have one? Excellent. Hold on to the idea. Everybody, one person at your table, raise your hand if you have an idea or a process that you know that needs to be improved in your organization. Come on. All right, so we have, think about the thing that is the pain inside of your organization. We're going to map that process at your table. So Dave and I are going to give you flip charts. We're going to have to start moving and clearing stuff off your table. The point of this exercise is to get hands-on, work together as a team, map the process. We're going to do a debrief. There were some processes. By the way, first off, thank you for the folks that stepped up and said, let's map this process. Thank you. It's an honor to be on this journey with you. And there were some people that were hesitant to do this, so thank you. But we're going to pick one, the light pole process. If you could have the person that's the process owner come on up. And she needs one or two people to roll deep with her. So a couple of people come on up here. All right. And if you could, come on up here. I know the camera's a little wonky, but the camera's facing that way. Just kind of hold it up a little bit so that folks in the back can kind of sort of see it. And who is the process owner? You are. Is this thing on?
Yeah, now it is.
All right, excellent. So if you could, introduce yourself, city, this.
Hi, I'm Josette Reyna with the City of West Sacramento Public Works Department. I'm the Administrative Services Manager, and part of my role is to take in all of the customer requests through our CRM. We do take requests via our CRM website as well as over the phone. So one of our challenges is to effectively track streetlight pole outages and get back to our residents to let them know when it'll be repaired. So we started off our process with how we receive reports. And for the most part, if it's in blue, it means that it's a city staff member. If it's in orange, it is our customer. And then, of course, the diamonds are the decision points. So we receive the report via email or phone. normally telling us that there's a street light pole that's out. At that point, depending upon if we actually have the person on the phone or not, we try to gather as much information as possible, including the location and possible pole number. A lot of these poles are older, and they do have a number, but it's normally scratched out. So in order to find the correct location and pole in order to create the service request, we have to look up and enter the information first on a work order so we can track it. We do this both in hard copy in case we have to route it to another department, but we also track it on a master spreadsheet. In order to do so, we have to look up the information in our GIS system in order to determine if the streetlight pole is actually owned by the city or if it's a PG&E maintained streetlight. That normally is our streetlights by on-ramps and things of that nature. So then what we do is once we make our decision that it's PG&E or a city, that's one of our main decision points. Thank you. So once we determine whether it's PG&E or the city, if it's PG&E, we have to go to PG&E's website and enter that information again, the same information that we just entered on our own work order. Once it goes into the PG&E system, it goes into an electronic, and they give you a work order number. That is their work order number, not our work order number. So on our work order, we will actually reference the PG&E ticket number. And then PG&E does not contact us back. They do not let us know when that street light is going to be repaired. And basically, you have to check back every few weeks and see what happens. If you do so, then you can go ahead and close out your city request and go ahead and update the spreadsheet. And that's where the end of the process is. If, however, though, it is a city streetlight, then we go ahead and we update the work order and we send it via email, which is normally a scan of a hard copy, to the actual city electrician who will go out and inspect it. Once they investigate the light pole, if the city can repair it, then they will do so. Otherwise, if there's a bigger issue, like the copper wiring was stolen out of the streetlight, then they have to go ahead and create a work order to Republic or Siemens, which are our two contractors that actually maintain streetlights for us, as well as traffic signal lights. If it is a contractor, then we send in the request to the service, and then we update the work order with the status. And then once we get the bill back from the contractor, then we know the work was done. And we can go ahead and close out the request and update the spreadsheet. If we determine that it's just a burnt out light bulb and we can go ahead and basically replace the eye, the city will repair it, return the work order to the CRM, and the CRM will close out the request and spreadsheet. And that's it. That's all we do. We actually don't get back to the customer because if it's done, they're happy. Otherwise, when you hear back from the customer is when it's taken so long and they want to know why. Unfortunately, we did find redundancy, of course, because we are creating the same system 3 times in a work order, in a spreadsheet, and possibly to PG&E. So we have a lot of redundancy in entering the information, but additionally, we are not closing back the loop to update the customer. It's one of those things that's a wait and see. So we would like to make this more of a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. So I definitely thank my team, and I welcome suggestions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Everybody, hands up. Here we go. Thank you. Okay. So a couple of things, just in order that you have some form of a takeaway. Every step in the process where you and the team seeing the waste together, one of the things is, the mantra is, you don't play God. You see together as a team and you work together as a team. The idea is each one of the stars could potentially be a redundancy, let's call it waste, right? So you're identifying waste in the process and opportunities for innovation. And the hope is that you can start to get to those that are process changes or technology changes, and sometimes it's both. So I just wanted to point out that the stars are, we're trying to label it as that's potential redundancy, it's waste in the process. And the other idea is there a step or multiple series of steps that add no value to the customer? And so one of the things that we lacked in this is identification of who your customer is. I asked a few of the tables, you were very clear on who your customer was, but always try to list out who's your customer, what do they value? And that is the question that you ask as a team. Does this particular step here add value to who the customer is and what they value? And if the answer is we don't know what they value, go meet them. It is not your job to come up with what you think they value. So thank you very much. We're done. Thank you. Some people have come up to me and said, Scottie, there's no break here. I'm like, yeah, there's no break. Yeah, we're going straight through, man. Like, we're doing this. So now that you've identified the waste, now what? Well, one of the things that we do is, remember, lean is broken up into tools to identify the waste and then tools to eliminate the waste. And one of the primary things that we like to teach is called standard work. And we have an exercise for standard work. There should be typing paper on your table. There you go. Pass that around. Everybody get out a sheet of typing paper. Ooh, sorry. Got it. Sheet of typing paper. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I feel like you guys are like the kick to the curb table. I'm so sorry. All right. At least you get to smell my cologne, right? Okay. So, sheet of typing paper. Can't believe I called it typing paper. Is that sheet of paper?
Yeah.
A3. 8.5 by 11 size. Hold up your sheet of paper when you get it. Excellent. Okay, everybody, got it up? Now you're gonna have to trust me. You guys do you really trust me? Or do you think this guy's kind of crazy? I actually don't care. But I'm gonna ask you to do something. I'm gonna ask you here in a moment to close your eyes. Don't close them yet. And for the next probably 30 seconds, just relax. Listen to my voice and follow my instructions. And you please, please, please keep your eyes closed during the exercise. Close your eyes. Please keep them closed. You're on your honor. Pick up your sheet of paper. You might need to open your eyes to do that. Okay. Have it in front of you. Fold it in half. Fold it in half again.
All right, this session goes right through from the first one, but feel free to just
Fold it in half
it's
again.
It's like a double session combined, but you can jump in if you want. Yeah, it's the Peak Academy one.
And then tear off one corner of your paper. One small, teeny, thumb-sized corner. Now open your eyes and open up your paper and compare yours to mine. Does yours look like mine? This is what the customer wanted. Now, I am visually going to walk you through. It's your first day on the job. Hello, new person at the City of Denver. Here's what we do. We fold in half. Oh, wait a minute. I start the exercise with, here's what the customer wants. Do you see the finished product? Excellent. Please hold on to this. The customer values that. Take your sheet of paper, fold in half again. Fold in half again. And rip off one corner. Got it? Good. Make 100 of these. What's interesting is I've taught you visually. That is very important. I walk you through the process, and if I mentor you, I sit with you and we do several of these together. It's even better if I have written down the instructions with pictures on one sheet of paper. There's multiple organizations that we come across in Denver. If they have things written down of what their standard operating procedures are, their SOPs, it's in the lean world, it's called standard work. Then it's usually like a 400-page document, no pictures, and usually just blah text. And we teach people some technical writing, bullets, lots of white space. Pictures are very important. Visual. People are visual learners. The statistics show that. So the intent is to standardize what you do so that you can together as a team, if you understand what the process is and you have standard work, you can improve on that standard work. So this is the exercise in standard work. Has anybody ever done that before? One person has done that before. Okay. So what is the concept that you just learned through this? Is you have your current state before you do any type of rapid improvement event or process innovation, and if you roll that ball up the hill towards improving your organization's service delivery, if you create standard work, it's like you're putting a wedge so it can't roll back downhill. And then if people are not delivering with the processes that you've documented, the intent is to teach and to guide and to coach and to make sure that you have that standard work in place. And from there, you can start the ball rolling again, around continuously improving what your organization does. And as soon as you do another innovation, create more standard work to put another wedge in and continually roll it up the hill. So you've just been taught 2 tools on how to identify waste, process mapping, and tools to eliminate waste. And one of the primary ones in our government in Denver is to standardize through standard work what you do. Just document what you do and make sure everybody does it that way. So I was going to turn it over to Dave to talk about some of our innovations.
So I wanted to give you a sample of the types of things that we're seeing happening, both good and some of the obstacles we're facing now that we've gotten ourselves very heavily invested in this. I mentioned that we've trained close to 4,000 folks now out of our approximately 12,000 person workforce. What kinds of issues are we bumping up against? And then what are some of the success stories? I was out at the California Leadership Forum last week, and I was talking to Madam Secretary Batcher at GovOps, and she was saying, wow, the thing that she sort of mentioned was you're actually doing so. You actually have stories of things that are happening. And I'm like, yeah, that's the whole point, is to get folks innovating and then to celebrate the heck out of all the stuff they're doing so they'll do more of it. And I also mentioned we're only batting about 300 on this. So how do we start to close that gap? A couple of the examples up here. So lien letters. Here's a person, Amber, in Public Works Wastewater Division in accounting. And I don't know if it works like this in your city, but we have 190,000 homes. About 11,000 folks don't pay their wastewater bill each year. We put a lien on their home so that when it sells, we take that money back and we charge a 3% interest rate along the way. Turns out we send, I think I mentioned, 11,000 of those a year. I was surprised at how big the number was. And Amber had been doing this job for 15 years. And she'd always wondered, why do we send those letters out certified mail? $4.60. Why don't we just send them first class? She'd been doing it for 15 years. She took 4 hours of essentially the training you're getting. She completed a tool we didn't go through today called an A3. It took her about a week to make sure that the city attorney didn't have a problem with going from certified mail to first class mail. And by the way, her innovation included the postage change, right, from $4.60 to 46 cents, I think it is, per letter times 11,000. Plus, believe it or not, she was filling out those little forms that go on the certified mail by hand. 1,000 hours a year of her time, half of an FTE. So she completed that innovation in 1 week, implemented it, and the best we can tell is the only reason the current state existed was somebody probably didn't get their lien letter, complained to the mayor 5 administrations ago, and we changed it to certified mail. There was nothing documented about why we sent all those out certified mail, and she saved the city easily, I think it was $50,000 or $40,000 in postage plus half of an FTE cost. Those are the kinds of things we see over and over again. We call them just do it's. You don't need a team. You don't need to just do it, right? And if it doesn't work, put it back the way it was before. One of the ones I was really excited about that we sort of talked a little bit about yesterday was onboarding. Onboarding is important because, as it turns out, the research shows if somebody comes on board and the experience is bad, they're likely not to stay as long, and you're going to have higher turnover as a result. When we onboarded somebody, we couldn't get all their forms completed, get them their system ID, get them using their computer for about 6 days on average after they started. So it was about 50% of an FTE for those first 6 days were sort of spent filling out forms and things. And it turned out we had 22 forms. Much of the information overlapped, name, address, all that kind of stuff. And in 1 week, in a rapid improvement event, you're taking 10, 15 people, putting them together in a room for a week. That's a significant investment, right? We think about it usually being about $20,000 in soft costs to run one of these. But we had technology in the room, and the whole time the technology folks were saying, oh, we can totally make that better, because the business folks, the folks in HR were saying, this is crazy, why do we do this? We had 3 forums of the 22 alone were for the ethics board. Why would you need 3 of those? Just get it down to 1 form. Got it from 22 to 7. And created a form that somebody can key in 5 days before they start to work for the city and county of Denver with all the information, the superset of information for those 7 forms, populates the forms, sends it to us electronically, the person walks in, they're ready to go. Over $1 million in soft cost savings from that one alone. So those kinds of things I think are really powerful. One of the ones that was controversial, Scottie has it up here, animal shelter length of stay. So we're trying to increase the live release rate. That's our strategic goal. Remember that one slide I put up there that had the city stat portion. We have a strategy at Animal Care and Control of increasing the live release rate. We now have one of the highest in the country. It's gone from about 60% to just short of 90%. That was our goal. What was getting in the way of that goal? Well, it turns out, and this is the controversial part, that trying to treat every animal the same that we brought in was actually hurting our success metric, our performance metric. So there were animals that were coming in 10, 12 years old, violent, nobody's going to adopt them. We're keeping those for 30 days. Same thing we're doing for the animals that are likely to be adopted, but at the end of those 30 or 60 days or whatever it was, they're euthanized. So by thinking through, using the lean methodology, what was causing that to be the problem, really the waste in the process, and it's hard to say it. The animals we were keeping around that had no chance of adoption. If we euthanize those animals first, right away, we have more bed days, essentially, to keep animals longer, and that's what drove our live release rate up. Or at least one of the things. They did a number of rapid improvement events. So it's not always pretty, it's not always easy decision making that folks have to partake in to get this stuff done. But that's the kind of thing that this stuff reveals. One of the issues, so here's the impact. I asked you earlier, what did you think our impact was? We're shooting for about 10 million in identified opportunities and shooting for about 5 million off of a $1 million investment a year. So we invest about $1 million in peak academy and other peak performance related initiatives around CityStat a year, and we've been generating about 4 to 5 million in return, but we're identifying a lot more. Since we started this 2 years ago, we've identified close to $20 million of potential savings, but we've only implemented about 1/3 of that.
What about customer feedback? I mean, for a city, that's pretty important that your constituents are happy. Is there a measure for that?
Yeah, we rely heavily on the National Citizen Survey as our overall metric of customer satisfaction. That I think about 300 cities nationwide participate in that. That helps us with sort of the longitudinal look at how we're doing, as well as a comparative. Like we know, everybody's really happy with the fire department, much happier apparently than any other department in the city. But it's that way everywhere. We're no better or worse than any other person's fire department. Everybody just likes firefighters wherever you go. There are places where we have a rating of 40% customer satisfaction, but we're much above the rest of the country, or much above the rest of cities, and similarly we have places where we're at 80, 90% and we're much below. We do a lot more spot surveying though now, using cheap and easy tools like SurveyMonkey and that kind of thing to measure, and we're more proactive about getting that word out. I don't know that we're extremely sophisticated at it yet, but we do try to bring that voice of the customer in that way. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So there's this gap. We call it the cost of hesitation. You identify the opportunity, but you never carry through with it. Sometimes there's a good reason for that. Sometimes it's just we don't know. It turns out that the evolution in Denver has looked like this. The three of the agencies that got way out in front in terms of training their staff on lean through the Peak Academy identified that it was those first-line supervisors that were holding things back. It was the folks that got promoted to their first management position primarily because they really understood how to do things the old way, that were resisting the change that needed to happen. And three of those groups, in Denver International Airport, Human Services, and the Police Department said, we got to take a break from rapid improvement events and just do it. It's batting 300 is not okay. What we want to do, and they're doing this in 3 different ways, is develop standard leader training. So Scottie just talked about standard work. We're actually taking a time out and training those folks at the front line management, the sergeants in the police force, the first line supervisors elsewhere. How do you actually create that wedge into the line? How do you become comfortable enabling your employees to innovate in their areas of work, even though it's going to be uncomfortable for you, because now you're not going to know it the way you always did. And that's kind of the next evolution of what we think is happening with this process improvement and embedding the culture of innovation. And it's important to note, when we heard that that was the problem, in the spirit of decentralized innovation, I never would have known that the story I gave you about Amber doing the thing with lean letters. There's no way a centralized office of innovation or a chief performance officer or chief innovation officer would ever find that. It would be incredibly random if I ever knew about that possibility. The idea is get the innovation out into the folks who know the work and do the work. And now the next evolution is, how do we train their supervisors to support them in that work and hopefully bat something higher than 300? Because 300 is good enough, right? ROI is good. On $1 million, we're returning $4 million a year, but we could be returning $10 million. And it's only going to be a bigger aggregate issue as we train more and more of our employees. The conventional wisdom around lean is that you have to have somewhere north of 50% of your workforce, comfortable with it, i.e. this kind of training, able to walk into a rapid improvement event, maybe they don't know all the tools, and something around 5 to 15% of your workforce should be what we call a Denver black belt, which is really got a lot of training, like a week's worth, all 8 ways to identify, all 8 ways to eliminate waste, that kind of thing. That's the conventional wisdom. But I think what we're feeling, and that's from the private sector, what we're feeling is we probably need to make that a little bit higher on those black belts. We probably need to get that a little bit north of there. And then the third type of person we train, which is about a 9-month training, is a facilitator, somebody who can do what Scottie does and go in and actually lead a rapid improvement event. And we trained about 10 folks that way. It's a really huge investment. And the private sector's picked off at least 5 of them as soon as we train them. What's that?
To let you know, whenever we bring somebody on board as a facilitator in the Peak Academy, we tell them we want you to connect and
Be poached. This is really important, is we're planting the seeds of innovation. So we even have one of our facilitators that's now a frontline supervisor in our controller's office. So he was introduced to the city, facilitated several rapid improvement events, did lots of lean process improvement training, and got poached. And we want that. Like, think about the mentality. People are like, you are absolutely crazy. Like, yeah, we're crazy. We're crazy like that. Because guess what? We're propagating the good. And one of the things that I was mentored early on is, if you are a leader of a team and nobody on your team's being poached, something a little wrong. So the intent is, like, the caliber of folks that we bring in and the type of training that we give them, we want them to get poached within the city. And if they get poached in the private sector, even better. We start to build even more connections out into the private sector. So it's an investment that Dave as an executive is behind. And he trusts and knows, especially if you look at the efficiency opportunity, he knows that we're getting the return on investment. It's a pretty powerful story. And I think you had even mentioned we signed a deal that we're going to go train folks in the private sector. Is that right?
Right. I don't know if I did mention that. Yeah, so we'll be engaged with a company of about 450 employees. They hired Peak Academy to come in and teach them the same kind of thing and run several value stream analyses and rapid improvement events and essentially try to create the culture of innovation we've done in Denver in this group called National Cinemedia, which does the advertisements in the movie theaters. It's going to be, I don't have my head around how are we going to walk in as government and have, not be completely resisted by this private sector company as how the heck could government possibly teach us anything about efficiency? But I think the part of the answer anyway is to rely again on this older methodology, this lean methodology. Again, this is a proven methodology. We just happen to be teaching it, and they're a service-oriented company as well. And I don't know if I would agree. I think I'd be happier if they got poached internally in the city than poached by the private sector. Although if they stay in Denver, I guess that's a good thing. Yeah, question?
I was just wondering, where does those senior lean people sit within that larger organization, and how does it relate to other performance management initiatives or your 311 call center, which might be working to take on
Yeah, so in terms of, in terms of senior leadership involved in this effort to decentralized model, we don't have an Office of Innovation. We just have sort of me, and then we put the Peak Academy in the Budget and Management Office under the CFO, purposefully to keep that out of the mayor's office. What I've noticed in our culture is when we create a centralized office under the mayor, like the Office of Sustainability, it does that same kind of thing that I was talking about with technology. It makes everybody think, oh, we don't have to worry about, in this case, sustainability. The Office of Sustainability handles that. So we try to avoid doing that. Does that answer your question about the senior exec piece?
It might be different in different cities, I would guess.
Yeah. And then the 311 question, we use the 311 a lot to drive where we're going to, where the pain points are in the city. And they're a source of a lot of the data that we use to do that, but they're just a part of our organization like anyone else. So we sort of think of them as equal partners along the way. Yeah. Yes, Stuart. Get back to you.
How did you start the process when you brought people in? How did you get the capacity to train?
Yeah, good question. So we have in Denver something called the Innovation Fund. It's a $10 million fund that we create each year to fund innovative efforts across people, process, and technology. It used to be the IT Investment Council. And all the projects, all the investments were enterprise system stuff. And so the first thing we did back in 2011 when we took office is change that from IT investment to innovation. Again, to try to broaden the concept of what innovation could be around people, process, and technology. And then it took, in our first year, we hired 8 folks to work within the Peak Academy under Scottie's direction at a cost of, I think, $600,000. And they were limited FTE, so we generally found folks who were willing to come into the city. Again, it was back in the recession, so it was easier to do limited FTE then. And we hired folks who didn't have lean experience. The first hire that really the manager of Peak Academy now, we were looking at him versus somebody with 20 years of lean experience. And we chose the person who had the charisma and the sort of ability to connect with people. And I think he'd done like 3 days of lean training somewhere, because you can teach lean to anybody, but you can't teach those soft skills needed to get people engaged and excited about this stuff. And then a lot of the folks that we hire are trained educators, a lot of preschool, a lot of K-12 teachers, people you normally wouldn't think would be the types of folks. And then now they've become unlimited FTE, and we've grown the team to about a size of, I think it's 10 now. Yeah. Question?
You mentioned one of your earlier initiatives, soft cost savings. What happens when you find a significant soft cost savings, but there's hard costs associated with achieving it, which ultimately would be an increase in budget to realize that soft?
Yep. That's a good question. I'm trying to think of a good example for it. Generally, though, one of the first places we go is within the budget. Is there budget capacity within any of the budgets to fund that kind of thing? It turns out that and I don't know if this is a sign of our maybe not too strict budgeting process. So usually, agency heads can find those kinds of hard dollars to free up. Second place we would go would be the Innovation Fund, and the third place we would go would be just to the Budget and Management Office and look for contingency dollars to fund those kinds of things. But because we measure return in several ways, we got usually if it's a hard cost savings, a lot easier, especially low risk hard cost savings, like the postage example I gave, that would, something like that would be pretty easy to convince folks, hey, you're going to get this return right away. Soft cost savings that we directly receive as a city that one of the messages we had to get across early was no one will ever lose their job because of this, right? Your job may change, and that's a good thing because you'll do work that isn't waste and you'll do stuff that's respectful, but no one will ever lose a job, which means the way in which we get that soft return is usually in customer service outcomes. So the DMV, when we started this, the Department of Motor Vehicles, average wait time, hour and 10 minutes. Through these types of initiatives, we brought it down to half that, so 35 minutes with no additional FTE. But we're not taking their folks away from them as they innovate and saying, keep the wait time at an hour and 10, we're going to hire cops. Right? They get to reinvest that within their silo, which is not how maybe a mature organization would do it, but that's what's necessary in order to get people to innovate. One day we'll be doing stuff around value streams. We'll be having conversations about emergency medical response, not the fire department. We'll be having conversations around criminal justice supply chain, not police, sheriff, courts, et cetera. But we're not at that maturity level yet. The last one, the one that is hard to get folks on board with, is societal benefit. So that's where the customers, the citizens benefit, but we as the government don't get anything back. And the one we're doing right now, as we call it, you're free to click it, which is we're relaxing all the credit card fees across the city. So all the convenience fees we charge people whenever they used a credit card for an online transaction. We started doing that in the first of the year, and we did more online transactions in January and February than we did all of last year. And it's super powerful in terms of it's a much better way. From a tender analysis perspective, it's a lot cheaper to handle credit card transactions than cash or check. But the budget office didn't think we were going to be that successful, and they were pretty freaked out when, it's over $1.6 million of convenience fees we've foregone this year already. That's a hard one to sell. Yes? I knew I was going to get the union question. I always get that. So we have in Denver, the unionized groups are police, fire, and sheriff, and everybody else is non-unionized. The way we handle that is we don't have any challenges, but the reason why we don't have any challenges is we tend to not go after the core capability of the unionized workforce. We don't do this around how you police. We do records bureau. Like we focus on the records bureau within the police department, or in the sheriff department, it's around the vehicle impound process. It's the stuff that's not threatening to them. Nobody became a police officer to do records. And few sheriffs became sheriffs so that they could do vehicle impound work. So it's not threatening to them, and they kind of appreciate it. And then what happens is the leaders see, wow, that worked really well. Maybe I do want to do this in the core areas of my business. And we've had, like, one of our best innovations this year was a guy, Officer Bobby Wadler, came through 5 days of black belt training and figured out, and at the end his innovation proposal was, hey, we're double data entering. We're keying all the stuff into the system, the RMS, and then we're flipping down the screen and we're writing the same information on a log sheet, because that's what the supervisors want to see, is the log sheet, because that's, again, back to the supervisor and center leader training stuff, that's what they like to see, was the log sheets. They don't want to read the reports in there. And that turned out to be, that was 30 minutes a day of a 10-hour shift per officer for every 10-hour shift. That added up to a lot of duplicate data entry. So you get that kind of buy-in by training some of the folks that do the line level stuff, and by not focusing on, hey, we're going to tell you how to be a cop or a firefighter, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so will we find that people who can automate something, taking writing on a piece of paper,
How's it going?
Good. System, that's a big change, and you need to get approval to do it.
Is it what I can do? I gotta take pictures of that guy.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not saying it's easy. Yes, another question?
It seems like some of the major process improvements require some kind of major IT investment on, not just on like transactional systems like work order systems, including the ones we map. And even though it seems like the best way to develop IT is in this iterative, incremental way, for most places, you're really talking about like thinking about purchasing some kind of software, which is never really that iterative. So what do you think of that? And are a lot of these process improvements tied up with rolling out some kind of super hard and imperfect, software for something like work order systems?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've really tried to shy away from those big enterprise investments, especially where we don't have the business process and business requirements mapped out ahead of time. But most of the time it works out for us. We already have the systems. We might need to buy a module or custom, maybe not customize, but configure the system in a way that we hadn't thought about before. An example would be the arrest process in Denver. So we had 5 systems across police, police, sheriff, district attorney, city attorney, and courts. Those systems didn't talk to each other, so we were duplicate data entering every arrest got entered in separately, and we were literally at one point sending paper through pneumatic tubes from one agency to another and doing that kind of thing. We already had the 5 systems. We already had the SOA architecture to link them together. What we didn't have was governance. So the police department tried to lead the effort, and the other agencies pushed back so hard that the average time to arrest somebody in Denver went from 15 minutes to 45 minutes when we automated it. Right? And we arrest 40. We put in custody 40,000 people a year. That's a big change. 30 minutes per times that. So they had to abandon it. What was necessary there was a governance structure that allowed all of those agencies to work towards a common goal. And as soon as we said, okay, we're going to create a governance, and their governance structure was anybody across these 5 agencies wants to veto any decision we make at any time, we'll do it. And that's what brought the DA and some of these independently elected groups to the table. But we haven't found that we have to buy. In fact, one of the rules to the game usually is you can't buy technology. Yeah. Other questions? Do you want to wrap up?
Sure. I had asked for everybody to sign in, and there was a reason for it. It's because we made a decision coming out that even though our 4-hour training is for a Denver Greenbelt, we're going to certify all of you as Denver Greenbelts. So, but in order to get that certification, and one of our green lanyards, right? You got to pass an exam. So, question: how many people work for the city and county of Denver? God, sorry, I forgot to give you the rules. What was it? 11,000 people. Next question about Denver: how big is our budget? $2.2 billion. Excellent. Question about peak performance. What are the 3 ways that you can innovate in any organization? Raise your hand. Yes. Process? Yes. Technology. People, process, technology. By the way, sometimes you start a process innovation and it turns into technology. Sometimes you start with, we got to change the laws, that's the people, like the KSAs, and then you figure out you got to change the process. They're not independent of one another, and we get that, but with Peak Academy, we purposely tried to focus on process innovation. Question about lean. Name one tool on how to identify waste. Oh, come on. Hold on. Back in the back. Flow. That is one of the principles of lean. What is one tool to identify waste? Yeah. Rapid improvement event. That's a tool that we use to eliminate waste. No.
Somebody said it. Somebody knows the answer.
Yeah.
I heard it.
Yeah. Yes. Post-its, which are part of process mapping. Yes. All right. You guys are really good. All right. What's one tool to eliminate waste? Come on, Bueller. Wait, hold on, who was that? Standard work. Thank you. Excellent. Okay. Now, what was Dave's fun fact? Raise your hand. Yes.
You sleep with a stuffed animal.
Not me, Dave.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're going to have to retape that now.
That's right. High school classmate Mark Head from what city in the United States? Syracuse, New York. Excellent. All right, and you guys got my fun fact. And if you want to hear the story about how I was fired from Walt Disney World, let me know. I'd be happy to share that one with you. It's really funny. Please don't tell anybody in HR in Denver, because somehow I got past the background check. Please don't tell anybody that I was fired. Right. Okay. By the way, you are all now Denver Greenbelts. I'm going to walk around and start giving you lanyards. You can kind of take us out.
Okay, so a couple of things. And the mayor has made this offer to cities. If you have an interest in Peak Academy, we've had, like I said, many people have come to Denver to participate. The idea is not that one person getting this kind of training is going to necessarily be able to move a lot of mountains. But the idea is you can take it like Ashley has and some other folks and take it back to your city and customize it to whatever purpose you want to use it for. What we have found is a little bit is not enough. You kind of have to go, the term we use is whole hog. You either got to go with lean, or you probably shouldn't invest a little bit. Spreading the peanut butter thinly on this doesn't seem to work very well. And other than that, we're just available for questions. We really appreciate you coming to the session today. And were there any final questions before we wrap up? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.